Welcome back to another episode of Run Yogi Diaries. This is your host, Santosh Shiva. If you're new to the channel, please do remember to subscribe. If you like this conversation, hit like and leave your comments below and let us know what you think. Excited to have today in the house Manjeet Singh. I found his journey extremely exciting and very interesting because he's not just someone who's focused on endurance, but on functional fitness. And I'm sure a lot of us who are endurance sports junkies will appreciate that functional fitness goes a long way in longevity and keep doing what we love to do, which is endurance. So we get behind the scenes on what got him to choose this approach and learn a few things. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Let's dig in. Hey Manjeet, welcome to Run Yogi Diaries.
Santosh, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to the conversation.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. For some reason we are connected on LinkedIn, and I saw once a post of yours, which was very, very intriguing, and I think it's very applicable to this conversation. Which is, I think your message was, try hard or something on those lines, and kind of caught my attention. And that's how we got to talking, and here we are. And so I'll do a quick take a stab at introducing who you are, and then we'll go from there.
All right, let's dive in.
Okay. So Manjeet, you go by Manjeet Singh, right? And you're a tech executive in the Bay Area. You live in the Bay Area now, but originally from Haryana, India. Been in the US since 2007, I think, right?
Yeah.
And been a huge evangelist for holistic, agile or functional fitness, and that's very interesting because that's an area that all of us struggle with. Even people who are active look for tips on how to get functionally fit. So, and that's what you're all about. Married, kids, all that good stuff. And did I miss something?
Yeah, no, at a high level, I think you covered different aspects. Maybe I can add a few more details in there. So I think if I divide my life so far into two chapters, first is, I was born and brought up in Haryana, in a very small village, I would say 70 kilometers from Delhi. And I think the kind of environment where you are in the small village is scarcity of resources and everything, and then I would say a lot of life's fundamental I learned from there. In fact, the basics of my fitness, people ask is like, hey, how long you have been working? And I'm like, as far as I can remember, because as a kids we play a lot of sports, all of us do. But what happens is when we transition into the higher studies, and that's when the balls really starts to drop. And luckily, I never dropped it. I remember going into, we had a small farm. My dad was in army, going into in our kind of small farms and help out my mothers, and then so I think that the waking up early in the morning, some of those things that people struggle with, I think I was lucky to get them very early, and I continued it because I think that's kind of in different life phases. When I, in the second chapter when I came to US, that's when it's like, okay, now I have a little more time now, and all the resources and food around, and so I think the way I describe people is, hey, every couple of years, you have to transform yourself. And I've done this, when I was in 20s versus 30s versus 40s. So I think the second chapter is, as I'm getting older, how do we optimize pretty much all, not just my work, but also on the fitness side of the house. But yeah, no, I think I've been living in Bay Area for the last 15 years. I have two young boys. Love to play with them. It's a fun age. One is 10, one is 6. Trying to stay active. So this is one of the why, I think, among many. And with me and my wife both are working, so life is pretty busy, but can't
Yeah.
complain. I think we're living in a fantastic this time where we have so much to leverage, so much to learn, so much to share.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. No, thanks for sharing that. And in fact, probably you answered part of the question that typically what I start with, which is, do a bit of a flashback in terms of what got you started. And it seems like in your
Mhm.
case, you lived in a rural setting, and being active was just part of life, right? And so maybe just let's double click on that a bit, right? So
Mhm.
do you still go back to that rural lifestyle every now and then, or you've completely urbanized like all of everybody else?
Yeah, no, good question. I'm not, and I don't want to be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should never forget our roots. I try to visit India every year. My parents are there, my brothers, and so I look forward to. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, that's a great reset to go there and spend time with them, and also I try to spend time in the place where we used to play
Mm-hmm.
and go to visit my field, and it's a great reminder. I think and no, doesn't matter how far we can come
Mm-hmm.
from different the lens of success. But it's good to go, and those places are honestly, because one is it was not too far from Delhi. Those places are also
Mm-hmm.
urbanized now. If you go in there,
Okay.
everybody has Facebook accounts, and people follow me in there, so they keep seeing my posts, and then I go there, it's like so immediately connect as soon as I go there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. So I hear you. I hear you. So I guess going back to your own journey, right? I mean, back then when you were, like you said, you lived a lifestyle which was, by nature, getting up in the
Mhm.
morning, doing certain physical chores, and I think a lot, like, unlike a lot of people that move into education, do your whatever, engineering, medicine, law, or science, or whatever, uh, leave that behind, and then lifestyle changes. So how did you what made you stay active? How did you continue to stay physically active or not get digressed into partying and all those att- all those attractions that happened during your early 20s, right? How did you
Right,
do that?
right. So that's interesting. I would say my number one factor is my morning routine.
Hmm.
I call it a routine. It was not so obvious, let's say, when you are in 20s.
Yeah.
But I think I always have this habit of waking up early.
Hmm.
And that's what gives me those kind of, I call them now sacred hours, the
Hmm.
1 hour, 2 hours, and I now continue to optimize. Even when I was partying, somehow, my clock is that I can't sleep
Hmm.
after 6 a.m.
Okay.
Even if, let's say, I partied until 12 or 1, and then I was like, I'll be up at 6. So I think that's where when I'm up, I'm like, okay, I remember times when, in the college, first time you drink and you're hangover, still I'll just wake up, walk around, and then, but I would say that's the number one factor.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
second is this little bit of, I think, surrounding yourself with people who are, little bit active, not like pulling you
Hmm.
down,
Hmm.
because we are a sum
Yeah.
of what, we live with. And
Right. Right. Right.
so I think the combination of those, and I would say in a lot of my circles, I happens to be the driver. Is like, okay, let's go and play,
Yeah.
and I continued. And then I think the very keen observations on the days, on the weeks when you don't do it, you see
Hmm.
the difference in energy. You see the difference, and it's like, okay, something is missing.
Yeah.
And I think people, when they don't do the observation and self reflection, after a while they kind of forget, like, hey,
Yeah.
what it feels when you are like really energetic day, and then not just one
Yeah.
day. How can I make it a week, or how can I make it a month? Or so. I
Right.
think
Right.
this idea of It was not very conscious, but when I came
Mm.
to US, when I had a little bit more time, and then started reading about, hey, how can we be more systematic? I was reading about productivity. I was reading about
Mm.
that's when I was like, okay, now it's like dots are connecting, and so just continue to optimize on that. And I think that's where
Yeah.
you mentioned about a little bit of agile fitness. Happy to go in a little bit of in that, what that means to me, and but I think I'm a strong believer that staying fit doesn't require really really long time, or um, and when I started working in the product management, because as a product person, I'm kind of so focused on, hey, how can we have the biggest impact? How can
Hmm.
we have, like we're talking about, these return on investment? And then I applied that philosophy into like, hey, to stay fit, you don't need more than 20 minutes a day, honestly. And then I
Right.
built up a few different ideas and programs like, to stay lean fit, not stuck in this rate, kind of, the gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing
Yeah.
weight. So those are some of the areas I experimented. Like in product, we say, hey, A/B testing. So experiment, see what works. If something doesn't work, you throw it out. Something works, start to fit into a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then there were different variations. When we had our first kid versus second kid, we had to adjust again. And then,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
largely, yeah, I think it's just being observing and then keeping it really simple.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. But for everyone, right? So you have a certain view of things, right? And you didn't just get there. You got there through a process, and a lot of times, you know, life's experiences, life's uh, uh, priorities define a lot of that,
mhm,
right? So I'm a little interested into going back again, prior to
mhm,
2007. So you had a rural lifestyle, so I got that. And I'm sure
mhm.
you went to some college and you started studying there. You had friends, and you talked about partying, drinking, and all that is part of what happens for most people, right? Now, tell me, as you progressed in your studying and your working, and for a lot of people, when work starts, then you get married. All of these other things that you were doing when you were young takes a backseat because life has so many other new priorities. So tell me, in your case, you seem to not have been very highly impacted with that, right?
Mhm.
So how did you do that? So I'm sure you started in a certain direction and then realized, no, this is not necessarily the right direction to go, and you kept calibrating until you got to a point where you're defining this worldview you're talking about. But give us a sense of what happened. How did that happen? And what kind of sports were you playing when you were younger, versus like when you were very young versus like when you were in college?
Mhm.
Give us a sense of that.
Sure. So when I was in school, wrestling was, because in Haryana, right? Because as you see,
Ah,
there's a lot of wrestler comes out from there,
yes,
and
yes.
wrestling is a lot of my relatives. They used to do wrestling. I
Ah,
was still, I would say, wrestling was not my main focus. I was, a good student. Like, I was always a mentor in my school, and then so study
you were the
was
good you were the good
main.
boy.
Right.
You were the good
Study
boy
was,
of the class.
yeah. But
Nice.
I was a little bit of, whenever there was an opportunity, used to go with my cousins and those kind of, so I would say
Hmm.
wrestling, form of wrestling, going in there is
Hmm.
what kind of, I had. And what I think that gave me is that I think a little bit of that identity of myself that, hey, I am a fit boy.
Right.
Um, right. I think that concept is so important now looking back,
Hmm.
because whatever do, if you tie it to that your identity in the sense that, oh no, I'm fit, and anytime you
Yeah.
starts to derail or starts to go down, and if you can observe that and come back,
Yeah.
I think that's what getting, even when I moved to Delhi for my first job, it was very demanding job, in the customer
Hmm.
support.
Hmm.
So I was like driving scooters in Delhi, Noida, and all those area pretty much entire day. We had a lot of banking customers, and then, but when I was kind of the eating all those, the food outside, which was completely
Mm.
unhealthy. And when I kind of noticed, and I was like, no, I mean, Manjeet is a healthy boy. So I think
Mm.
I would say that's a little bit of that thread is uh,
Mm.
is what, and then the next day I'll wake up in the morning, and then it's like, okay, I'll get my workout before I go to my
Nice.
first in-field calls,
Yeah.
and then continue to find some workout facility nearby, no matter where I lived. So moved in kind of
Mm.
in the different areas. In fact, I was deployed for 6 months. There is a chemical factory
Mm-hmm.
in Uttar Pradesh, and when I was in there, it's like, okay, it's one is the air quality and everything was not good. So, but how do you? Then I was like, okay, I'm not going to work out outdoor. I'll kind of work out indoor.
Mm.
So I
Interesting.
think that's when I built the love of bodyweight workouts, and that was
Mm.
a lifesaver. I think a lot of my agile fitness principles are how you can use your body to. You don't need anything else. If you
Yeah.
yourself, no matter where you drop me in the world,
Yeah.
I will in 20 minutes. That's what I need every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. So you talked about wrestling, right? So let's talk a little bit about that because
Mm.
I don't think a lot of folks who are in the endurance sports
Mm-hmm.
necessarily think about wrestling, right? And you're right, right? When you look at least whatever I've seen on TV or there was a big movie that Amir Khan made very famous, right? On wrestling, and that's how wrestling came to mainstream attention to people saying, "Oh wow, we have something going on in wrestling," and if you looked at that movie, right, you had those two girls working extremely hard to go out and wrestle out there. So there's a huge amount of fitness. It's just not about brute force, and there's a lot of technique involved. So did you have somebody in your family that you were close to who from whom you were kind of observing this that made you say, hey, you know what, I want to be like that, I want to be as fit as that person? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
so I had, yeah, I had a lot of, friends, relatives, uh, my mother's, my mamaji, my mother's kind of all brothers, they were wrestlers. So
Wow.
yes, so very close observation, also seeing them,
Hmm.
the community and camaraderie and
Yeah.
how long it takes. I think that's super, super
Hmm.
important because it's not just a 2 year, 3 year, and 5 years. It's just like, and it's all in game.
Yeah.
Because, and what I mean by that is, okay, if you want to become a wrestler, and so let's say if you get introduced in your seventh and eighth grade, it's all in. And then I think the study and everything goes to the back foot.
Yeah.
And every day, in the morning, in the evening, that's the only thing you do. You
Yeah.
work out a couple of hours in the morning, recover the entire day, sleep, eat, whatever, work out again in the morning, and it's repeat, 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 repeat,
Yeah.
and there's repetition is what. And it was kind of, yeah, to your point, very kind of brute force way. Now it's getting more
Hmm.
technical, and then
Yeah.
how do we
Yeah.
optimize? But I think as far as I know, it was just drink a lot of milk, eat a lot of ghee, um,
Yeah.
and just sweat it out.
Yeah. Nice.
It's very raw, and it helps build up a lot of that power and the mental resilience, and that's what I think is needed.
Right.
But I think that sports itself is, I mean, a lot of
Hmm.
modernized now, and then
Right.
different form of
Right.
wrestling. Earlier, it was just used to be in the sand. Now it's like all
Yeah.
different forms of wrestling.
Yeah. 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 The movie's name is Dangal, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That brought out the whole story of Fogart girls. And there was another movie, Salman Khan's movie, that also where he was a wrestler. I'm going blank on the name of that movie.
Sultan. Yeah.
Sultan. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that God has got a lot of it popularized. It's
Yeah.
a cinematic obviously adaptations of these things, but it popularized that sports. Now tell me one thing. We see this uh, you know, uh, on media and TV talking about in Haryana people drinking a lot of milk and having ghee for becoming wrestlers, and they're big made. But in your experience, like long term, right? Because now we're all obsessed about what we put in our body, and there's always a debate between what to eat, what not to eat, what makes you fit. So this whole ghee milk thing, uh, how does it play out for people later in their lives? I know young, that's different when they're
Right,
active.
right.
And so these same people, when they become middle aged, um, have you seen any observations there? Any lessons?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, I ended up doing formal, fitness trainer certifications that started there, and then I
Mm-hmm.
also did the nutritionist coach. So I'm also certified. So I can,
Okay, bring it
and
on.
yeah, and then I kind of went back and look into all these different, and of course I started with like, hey, the things that
Mm-hmm.
I have been eating from, let's say, the last 30 years or so, and then others. So I think the key, I'll give it a summary, and happy to kind of double click on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
areas
yeah.
we want. See, in the Haryana, it was very simplified diet, and what I mean by
Mm,
that is there are only maybe 5 items you eat, pretty much.
mm, mm,
Everybody in has a lot of one. And number one, kind of the bucket list there is milk and milk products, right?
mhm,
That was the main source of protein. That was the main source
mhm.
of all your vitamins, and then uh, second is wheat or grains. Mostly, it's kind of
Right.
the wheat, and most of the diet is kind of centered around that. And of course, a little bit of
Mm,
vegetables, and but not those were not the main
mm,
main
mm.
ones. So if you look at that diet is less variation, but it is a complete diet. When you look at
Mhm,
macronutrient standpoint,
mhm,
protein, and
mhm,
then the fiber, and then
mhm, mhm,
the diet is a good diet if your activity level is high. If you are
mhm,
working hard every day,
mhm.
then I still, and I can basically show a lot of data, so now science backed data as well, that diet is not a bad diet. In fact, it's a good diet.
Mm.
And then I looked at the people, right? The one is, hey, let's look at the longevity span.
Right.
People who have been, let's say, eating this, and then people who were in their 70s, 80s, and 90s,
Mhm,
and then so in Haryana, I mean, longevity span was pretty, I would say, higher than some of the South Indian people,
mhm,
right? So that's
mhm.
another kind of question to ask is like, okay,
Right. Right.
because we're consuming so much of high,
Mm.
let's say the fatty food. But the problem starts to happen when your activity levels are starts to go down.
Mhm,
So that's when I think if the if I go there and if my activity levels is less, or people like, because there's so much automation, even in that I was
mm.
mentioning about, right, that I used to go and pretty much do all the farms work by hand. So I think that's when as more and more automation is coming, and if you keep the
Right.
same diet, then it becomes problematic.
Mm.
So that's why I think going back to the wrestling, right? Because if you are sweating out 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, no
Mm.
matter what you can eat, I mean, you just need more
Mm.
calories, and if you
Yeah.
balance out your calories from fat and protein and then carbs. So I think, and fat calories are good, honestly, because
Mm.
there's a lot of people, yeah, who's like ketogenic diet and all those,
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's kind of my
Yeah.
high
Makes
level
sense.
take on that.
Makes a lot of sense. And because one of the things is that South Asians, you probably know this and have read about it, but South Asians have a very high rate of diabetes and high blood pressure
Right.
as an ethnic group globally.
Hmm.
And we have genetic predisposition to this, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And you're right. In the subcontinent, people eat rice in the south and wheat in the north.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of stuff, and but yet, if you look at our genetic predisposition, we are at risk of diabetes and all these modern lifestyle diseases at pretty quick. If you don't,
Hmm.
if you don't keep a watch, you get it. It's not like
Yeah,
you can live a very relaxed, watch your TV lifestyle and then you'll be fine. It doesn't happen that way, right?
it doesn't
So
happen that
I
way.
find it very fascinating because and then there's so much debates on ancient foods and traditional foods. But my question is, well, we don't see that outcome in our bodies anymore, right? What's been put into our diets historically is also put us today at risk into something. So that means we have to have a lifestyle that our ancestors were living. In other words, what
Right,
you're
right,
saying, right? Which makes a
right,
lot of sense.
right.
At least that, because a lot of people just take the two things, like, oh, we can have wheat and we can have a lot of milk and we can have a lot of ghee, and look at what they're doing, right? They're living a good life.
Right.
But hey, you don't know that they put in 6 hours of workout.
Exactly.
Nobody talks about that.
Yeah, no, I
That
think
makes
that's where
sense.
it is. So this, so I'll tell you one thing that
Yeah.
I think people get wrong many,
Mm.
again and again and again and again.
Mhm.
The very anytime you see this, say, new diet or new, you just naturally pull towards it. I saw
Mm.
a video or I read an article, and then I was like, oh, this maybe is fast, but I think it's asking that question is like, hey, what is fundamental? What has been proven to be right? Not
Mm.
just for like 1 year.
Yeah.
For example, I tell, hey, what is my grandmother used to eat, or what is
Mm.
my father has
Mm.
been eating, and then see those are I think the food who have been kind of time tested.
Yeah.
So we should not just question them and disregard and then pick up something new as like, hey, avocado is better than the ghee. No, I mean, but yes, if you're not moving, sure, avocado is better. But if you
Mm.
really, if I did a 40 miles bike ride, sure, I'll enjoy my ghee. So I think
Yeah.
that's where it comes down to is
Yeah.
how they kind of figure it out.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
one thing I've been really, I
Mhm.
think if you ask me in last 10 years,
Mhm.
what I've been really digging deep and passionate and is around this healthy lifespan.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, Santosh, is you mentioned because we have genetic disadvantage, 100%.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, we are more prone to diabetic and then all these heart diseases and then
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's ever growing in a lot of my relatives, and I've seen this,
Yeah.
relatives in 40s kind of, going downhill all of a sudden, and then it's like game over in a way. Even if, they survived, it's on the pills and medicines and whatnot.
Mhm.
So one of the goal I have is how can I really elongate my healthy lifespan? So there is a health span and there is a lifespan. So I'm
Mhm.
combining them two. And personally, I'm shooting for 120 year in my case. Let's see how it goes. At
Arey
least
wah.
whatever is in my control. So,
Yeah.
so which means how can I have more energy? How can I live more pain free? Not
Mhm.
I'm 43 right now, but not
Mhm.
right now like 50, 60, 70. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit of game plan
Yeah.
that I have. I mean, when it comes down to fitness, I think long term
Yeah.
that I'll pick up the things that I can continue to do. So you mentioned Spartan. I would say that's a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
of
Let's get
new.
into that. I think maybe
I'm
that may be
exploring. Yeah.
maybe a right time to get into that. I think since you talked about longevity, and
Mm-hmm.
you talked about yeah. So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about what you believe today, at least from a hypothetical perspective, you are betting on for to get to
Mm-hmm.
120, right? Let's
Right.
double click on that then maybe.
Yeah. So let me start with a framework. In fact, I wrote a book a couple of years ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So it's on Amazon, and this was I was like, okay, it's my book for me.
Hmm.
I call it a handbook.
Hmm.
And because I was like, hey, my memory is short, I don't remember too many things, and let me, as I was, what I have tried, what worked, what didn't work. So the book title is Health and Wellness for the Modern Human, and the way basically I think the short summary there is I put it together is hey, we have the physical fitness, we have the mental fitness, then
Hmm.
we have the the spiritual or social fitness, a
Hmm.
little bit of the let's say the financial fitness. So we have this,
Hmm.
think of your chair, we have four legs
Hmm.
now, but it's a lot. How can we? The problem happens because we want to optimize all of them,
Hmm.
and that doesn't happen. And so if you go through the career journey, it's like okay, as I kind of like okay, I'm working in tech, so I think on the financial fitness standpoint, I think I'm at a decent spot in a way, right? So, and that's when is this idea of, okay, how can I really optimize my physical and mental fitness more? Because those are the things that downgrade significantly. And from there, it's all kind of, connecting into not short term. I'm not behind, the show the abs or, I've done that. I can do them in 2 weeks any day. So that's kind of,
Right.
because I've, experimented and whatnot. I'm also not into kind of bulking it up. What I've found out is I'm most energetic when I stay between, 145, 146 lbs. So I'm 5'7", 7 inch, and then so that's the weight. I feel I'm more energetic. I can basically, the right balance
So how did you
of
arrive at
different
that?
activities.
How did you arrive at that?
So I think so. One is I was a little bit of swinging between 140 and 150 in a way. When I was 140, it becomes too lean, and when I tell people I'm fitness coach, they don't believe it. They're like, so because typically when you look at them, fitness coach, okay, this guy has very 18 inch biceps and then all that. Okay, so like, okay, that's too lean. But when I started kind of go 150 or those, then what I'm realizing is, so I do a lot of these, the human flag and handstand and those, and so I see that my performance degrades as I basically go around 150 and more.
Okay.
So one fun exercise I do on my birthday is, and I started it when I was kind of 40-year-old. Hey, I'll do that many push-ups on every my birthday. So on my 40th, I did 40 pull-ups. 40th one, I did 41 pull-ups. So that's another, I think, is I think the right balance of. So that's where we can go into more, some of the data. So for example, that's the weight where my resting heart rate is. I find it much more balanced, around kind of 50 or less. That's where I see that my BMI is around like 12%. So I think those health markers also, when I think about long term, hey, if I'm aiming for 120 years, I should be looking at, I make sure I get my full blood profile and everything checked, not just the kind of aesthetic look and how am I feeling. So I force my doctors to do it. It's not optional. Sometimes it's like, no, all is fine, and I make some excuse, so they do it. As you know, in the US, there's so yeah, I think looking at some of those data, but most important is observation. Anything that I do, hey, did it work or not? So.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, that's a great. There's a lot of nugget of wisdom there, right? At least I'd like to kind of call out. There are no absolutes. It's you have to do it for yourself. But at least some of those markers that you talked about. One is just how you feel. Energy levels. The second is, you talked about some of those BMI markers and the overall body checkup that you do. So it comes down to people kind of doing some iterative stuff on themselves,
Right.
rather than kind of just going with some standard and then figuring out, hey, this is not working for me, it's worked for him, so what's going on here? And then so that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Okay, what else?
Yeah, so I don't know. There's I call myself a kind of a guinea pig. I've tried many different things and experimented, and I think that's another reason. I think people talk about, hey, this I do, let's say, running or marathon and all these other my workout routine has been a lot mixed in last 2 decades. And I found there's a strategic advantage I have over other people who do this. And let me break it down because from very beginning, my weekly routine has been, okay, couple of strength training session. And when I feel more energetic, when I have more time. And then one or two mobility, yoga. So a lot of these things, I think, I have learned it by myself. I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to a training. So anytime I see a video or I see something, okay, gets me intrigued, and I'll bookmark it and I'll kind of dig
Mm-hmm.
into. So I'm a huge fan of flexibility and mobility, because
Mm-hmm.
many people who are very serious into even endurance, and they
Yeah.
end up building very stiff body,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
injuries happen when your joints and mobiles don't have that, the mobility, or kind of loses, and then you are kind of pounding and pounding and pounding, like,
Yeah.
marathon
Yeah.
or triathlon.
Yeah.
So that's where kind of, the word agile fitness came in, that hey, we
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
agile.
Mm-hmm.
And then I keep switching between different routine, and what that has given me, Santosh, is never get bored in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but a few years ago, when I became kind of in a product leadership role, I was traveling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, now what? You're pretty much, in the airports. And then, so then I built up, hey, this is a 20 minutes workout I'll do in the airport.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
used to do it and people loved it. Anybody who was watching it me there, I'll do handstand, I'll do couple, 20 burpees,
Where?
and then boom, and then on the
Where
airport while wait.
on the gate? On the gate?
Anyway, on the gate, mostly on the gates, when you're
Wow.
kind of, checked in, and then, find a little bit of couple of chairs empty, and I'm doing dips and handstand, and, get ready. And then,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
so I think that's what, I attach my identity to, that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Coach Manjeet. I love to move.
Yeah.
You throw me anywhere in a dark room. I
Yeah.
don't need, my fitness is not dependent on whether weather is a good, or
Yeah.
whether there
Yeah.
is a gym, or whether you say
Yeah.
I'm fine in this room. I'm happy. I'll take out my
Yeah.
resistance band and do a couple of things, and I'm done. So,
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I hear you. I hear you. In fact, I think what you say makes a lot of sense, right? And I mean, as a runner, and of course, a lot of what we talk about on this podcast is about endurance sports and endurance
mhm.
journeys, running, ultras, triathlons. But I think there is a realization now in the community, in the endurance community, that mobility and strength are key to longevity in endurance, right? So
Right, right, right.
most of us, right? So most of us want to be doing our runs or swims or cycling as long as we can, and we love it so much that we want to embrace flexibility and strength now. It's other way around, right? But what you say makes a lot
Totally,
of
yeah.
sense, right? And I think there's science now that also suggests that as you age, your muscle mass is reducing, your strength is reducing. So
Hmm.
whatever you say makes a lot of sense. A, B, I think to people who are listening to this, who have a busy lifestyle, hey, what you said, maybe you don't have to do it in the gate, but hey, you can go to the hotel and do it,
Yeah,
but you
totally.
can still do it, right? So
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that I think you said this a couple of times in the conversation today, is about this whole idea of identity, right?
Hmm.
And it resonates with me, because even, and I completely get that, and I think for people who are listening to this, that could be a huge takeaway, because if you're struggling to start something, you're probably identified with something else. Probably you are identified with your as a person who is not capable of doing it, or you're a lazy person, or
Hmm.
you're it also works the other way, right? It has a
Right,
positive implication when someone like you, who said, hey, I'm Coach Manjeet and this is what I'll be, and and I see that for myself. I don't have a perfect lifestyle in terms of what I eat and what I drink, but in my identity, I'm a runner. And
right.
anytime I feel like I cannot run, I give up on all those things that I believe are causing it. But not that I have a perfect lifestyle. A lot of people think all. So that's a great. I think that's a great point you bring up about identity. Uh, uh, it works both ways, and if you use it properly, you get positive results. And if you're stuck with negative identities like, I'm lazy, I can't do it, I can't get
Right.
up in the morning, I'm too busy, blah blah, whatever, then you get that, right? That's a great point I think you make.
Yeah, yeah, and people. One thing I'll add, Santosh, is In my circle, and I've coached a lot of people. There's like they will pull out a phone. It's like, hey, this I used to be this and that, and I was like,
Mm.
and then I'm like smiling, and I was like, okay, what happened? What went wrong? And then okay, this usual stories are, oh, uh, I got an injury, and then and I never kind of recovered, and all fine,
Mm.
but
Mm.
then you're very very scared of the reason you're not kind of putting your foot back in is
Mm.
because like your experience of getting injured and rehabbing and all that, and then it's like okay, so I think
Mm.
that's 30-40% of the people. I don't have that the real data, but I'm making guess here. That's why they even give up their identity, and we should not. I
Mm.
think change.
Mm.
Let's say if I'm a runner, and if my knees
Mm.
are, let's say the not supporting me, I wouldn't say
Mhm.
don't push it. Pick up
Mhm.
biking, pick up
Yeah.
other ones, and there's low impact ones. And but I think that's where it's like okay, what do you do in your 30s versus 40s
Mhm.
and 50s? Um,
Yeah.
keep finding something that you can stick to. Doesn't matter what activity it is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. So I think it's a good time to uh, kind of pivot into the whole Spartan
Right.
journey of yours, right? Because obviously, at least it answers the why of why you chose Spartan. So give us a sense of what what goes on in a Spartan race, and you did touch upon a lot about your approach to fitness, which kind of
Mhm.
answers the question what you do to be fit for Spartan. But maybe if you can talk a little bit about your own personal experience with Spartan racing, and how did you find it easy to do it, or did you have to do something different beyond what you were already doing? Give us a sense of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So so there are many type of kind of these ultra event races, and Spartan is one of them. The way Spartan is different than other is it's an obstacle racing course. So it's not just like hey we are running for this month. So the way so this guy I think the founders they're from Navy background, and there's like
Mhm.
okay kind of a Navy SEAL type of training
Mhm.
where you do all the jumpings, you do all the climbings, and all the kind of this crawling under the. So I think that's a little bit of the background there, and it got quite popular now. I think there is almost 100,000 people in the community. Just like CrossFit, you
Yeah,
build out
yeah.
that cult following.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think the reason it resonates with the set of people because it's surprises. Because in many races there is no surprises, right? You can literally
Mhm.
train for it.
Mhm.
But in
Mhm.
this one, the obstacle pass is surprises. They don't tell
Mhm.
you what
Mhm.
type of obstacles you will get.
Right.
The categories. Okay, there will be a lot of the climbing, but is it a 5 feet,
Yeah.
10 feet climb, 20 feet climb? There's like there's a lifting weights.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
sort of the in there? Is it downhill? Is it uphill? And then I think that's surprise angle.
Yeah.
And then this mix of running plus there's functional fitness,
Mhm.
endurance fitness, and then um, and if you look at to cater to all the the needs, they have created few
Mhm.
different versions of that. So you can
Okay.
start as as small as 5 kilometers. So there's a
Mhm.
5K run, and maybe I think there is a 15 obstacles between that.
Okay.
Then there is a 10K with 2020. Then if you go to 30K or 50K,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
the distance plus the obstacles, and usually the place where you kind of set this up is more of a trail running, not a flat running.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so that's my exposure. I mean, I knew about this, and then it's one of my friend. He was like, "Hey, I've signed up for this. Can you come?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." And he was the no 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 come come come, and I'm kind of a guy who don't register the kind of in very
Mhm.
advance. I'm like okay, no, I'll go and buy tickets on the gate.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly I did. But of course the 2 weeks before, a little bit of watch more videos, And is like, okay, so it fitted into my the framework of, because I've tried half marathon, and those honestly I didn't enjoy that, the just kind of running. And maybe part of that because my last 10-15 years has been high intensity CrossFit. You get done your workout in 5 minutes, and then, or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So, but this one is okay. I'm running for a mile or two, and then I'm climbing, I'm jumping in the mud, coming out, running for another mile. So I think the structure resonated to my strength, I would say. And so no, I signed up for the full. There's a kind of called a beast mode there, so that's coming up in February, March time frame. So
So
no,
you're
I'm
getting
looking
ready for
forward
that.
to that.
Okay.
Yeah. So and that's the other thing. I think for any half marathon event and those, so this one was half and then like 30 obstacles, that the picture that I posted. But I think as you go up and level up game, then you really become a little bit more meticulous in your, okay, last thing I want to do is get injured. And I'm very proud of, I've done many kind of, the very high intensity jumping, like 20-30 feet wall and all those kind of things that, and I knock on the wood, I never got injured. And I'm not saying I cannot, but I think I avoid to push my body all of a sudden to a certain extent. So I basically prep for it. I think that's the little bit of secret I have.
Right.
I closely observe the signals wherever my joints and those, and then in fact, I'll tell you one thing happened is when I jumped into the mud, came out, when I was running, I started to basically, it's like, hey, my knees, like right side knees, uncomfortable. And so I turned around and I started running reverse for 200 steps. So, and then there's a few tricks I do that, little bit. So basically the idea is, if your one part of the body is getting compressed, if you can decompress it right away, or, you can say walk, run, or whatever. So,
Makes sense.
I think that's what I call it, that can you observe the signal your body is giving in any form, even if you're working, it doesn't matter what format you are in. The body gives a lot of signals, and then okay, when to push, how much to push. And I think that's the way, my playbook to not get injured.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So one thought that kind of popped up was, now, like, say you do 5K Spartan or obstacle run, or 10K, 13 miles. Now, in your case, of course, you were already at a certain level of fitness, so you could go to the gate and buy the ticket. But let's say somebody is not at your level of fitness, right? Can you talk to, for someone to do, let's say, the 5K event, just as a starter? What kind of training would you recommend? And where can they do it? Like, for example, climbing, or climbing a rope, or jumping into a mud. Where do people normally get this exposure, this kind of experiences before they do the race itself?
Right. So it's very easy now, because one is, if you go to Spartan.com, they have built out these training programs. And they also give you some of the, the places where you can go and train. But I'll really simplify it, because to do a Spartan, you need a little bit of upper body strength. You should be comfortable in hanging for a minute, for example. If you cannot hang yourself for a minute, there's, that's kind of the very, very baseline. And those kind of practices you can do anywhere, with local gym or those, just kind of, just hang, right? And then once you're comfortable with that hanging, then probably you a little bit of try to lift yourself. So, because it does require, half of the game is, hey, are you able to lift yourself or hang yourself? Because a lot of those activities. The second is, of course, running. That's, you just, build out the running routines slowly. And then I would say start with small trail runnings. But then the good thing is, the Spartan, this community, they're like, the program itself there are many programs that you can find out, and then always I would say, for starter, you find out a couple of in your zip code, you will find a couple of people, that talk to them, and then it's like, hey, can I join you, and go it from there. But it's the right mix of upper body strength, lower body strength, and then your cardio stamina.
Nice. Yeah. So how many have you done now so far?
So I've done two. And this is something I'm like, okay, as looked at your channel. So by the way, fantastic. I think your content deserve more wider audience, honestly.
Thank you.
Because
hit like and subscribe.
yeah, no, totally. I will, for sure. So this Agile fitness community one time grew up to 125,000 followers.
Wow.
So I had a Facebook page, and then when I was like in 2015, so I'll give a story there. So I tried to when I was doing my MBA, and I was like, okay, how can I combine these two passions of my fitness, and then I know how to build softwares. So I started to create this online platform where how do we connect people who need these kind of training coaching to the people who are providing coaching. They were all kind of distributed, the siloed facility. So that was kind of, I tried and I created this Facebook page called Agile Fitness, and I was posting it every day, and it literally kind of grew up in 2.5 years. And then my page got hacked. Somebody deleted the entire content, and they started to post some weird kind of pictures. And then, so it took me a month to work with Facebook to get it back. And I was like, okay, damn it. But yeah, no, anyway, I think the point I was saying is, I think what you're doing is sheer out of your passion and curiosity, and then kind of, people, I did listen to two of the episode, and a good job.
Thank you, Manjeet. Appreciate it. No, I definitely get to also speak to people like you. It's for me, it's a free university in a sense, right? There's so much to learn from different people's experiences. Now, your experience is so unique, and there's so much to I can take away, and people who are listening to this can take away. So yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. So now I know you. I was kind of pivoting into that question. Next is what's next for you, and you already answered that question, which is you're going to do the beast mode Spartan in February, right? So that's where you're headed, I guess, in terms of just events, and in terms of anything else that you're working on. What else from your what's next perspective in your journey?
Yeah, sure. So I think one is where my head is that I want to explore this different form of endurance sports a little bit more. And just to see, hey, is it my cup of tea or not? Will I enjoy? And my philosophy has been, it has to be fun. Of course, it gets the painful and those, and I honestly I enjoy that. My pain tolerance is way higher than a normal human being. It's just like, okay, put me in there, and I'm like, okay, breathe it out. That's a little bit. And I think I probably got that from my dad. He was a commander in the army, and then he used to tell stories like, hey, there's pain is looking for you, and you should look for pain. So that kind of mindset. So I think the one is kind of that bucket. But more important than that, I'll come back to this, this longer health span. And I think it's an exploration. One angle I'm looking for, as you can see, the health span increase using technology. There's a lot of interesting startup in the area, and so I'm looking at one angle as that, the little bit of the technology domain I work on, and then how basically continue to optimize. But I want to explore probably triathlon as well. So my but I want to do is, here's another important thing I quickly want to touch on is as I said, I have two young kids. me and my wife both are working, and it's very busy. And then, and you have this desire of, okay, let's me go for triathlon. And then, but at the same time, I always kind of, okay, where it will fit into, because I don't want to be gone for the entire Saturday for next 3 months or 4 months. I don't want to make that trade-off, because at age my kids are. I want to play with them. I want to. So in fact, a lot of things that I'm doing is the family together activities, and it's not like going to birthdays and all those. That's given. But I think so I've started coaching my sons in soccer games. So that has been going from last 3-4 years. Me and my wife have been doing long bike rides. So I think that's one advice I have for people with family and this age is include do the activities where you can do it together.
Right.
Because then there will be less complaint and less is like, okay, you are gone for a day, I'm gone for a day, weekend is gone, and now you're busy during the week. And then, that's a little bit of, I would say, and then I'll see how I little bit of fit in. The reason endurance space, this endurance thing was not a priority, it was too time taking in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a guy, okay, if my goal is to stay healthy and fit, I don't need more than 20-30 minutes. So let's see.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. No, I think that's a lot of, I think you called out something very important there as well. And a lot of people who, who I've talked to, who want to get into running, want to do it to lose weight or, to get fit. And I say, no, you don't need to do long distance running to get fit or lose weight. In fact, it may be contrary. You sometimes put on weight when you run, right? Because you tend to consume more. Right. So you're right. If your goal is to stay healthy, stay fit, functionally fit, 20-30 minutes a day, and the routine that you develop makes a lot of sense. If you want to run, then run by all means, but don't be under this illusion that running will make you fit. In fact, you will need to get fit to run. That's how it usually happens. You start wanting to run to lose weight, then you suddenly think, hey, you know what? Actually, I love running, but I need to start taking care of myself so I can keep running for a longer time. Right? It's the other way around. So you're right. You're right, and right about the family aspect. I completely, I think that's a great point as well. Include your family, get them interested in what you do, or make it interesting. It's you can do that for longer. Otherwise, it becomes another sore point at home, right?
100%. Yeah. No, I think that's. It's like hey, that's where you're going back to the physical fitness, your mental fitness, and your health and relationship. And I'll tell you my order also, and I'm very clear about that from a long time now. Is there's always that we have conflicting desires. We want to make more money. I want to have the six-pack abs and those. But my order is like, okay, I want to be healthy. Then I want to be there for my family, and then I want to basically, whatever makes me jump out of the bed in the morning, I'll do that. And that happens to be tech work that I'm doing. So I think that's where a lot of people struggle. But I don't judge anybody. We all have kind of our own, priorities. But I think it is important to be a little bit of clarity. We all kind of go through that little bit of, the based on what happens when you get married and kids and those. But there has to be some prioritization. And I'm able to link back some of my fitness routine and the product work that I do. In product, it's all about, hey, do you have a strategy in place? Do you have a plan? And then do you have the right prioritization? So, and again, those are the basics. You repeat those basics and you do them enough time or over a period of time and just wait for the compounding, I think, effect. So that's where, some of the routine I did, to me, I think this medium form of Spartan was kind of this piece of cake in a way, because there was a compounding effect of the mix of things I was doing. And I was like, people that were training for Spartan, they have done 8 or 10. They were like, "Oh, this was surprising. This was surprising." But honestly, for me, like, no. I mean, I need a different kind of a hang. I'll just do it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
Makes sense. Terrific. That was fantastic. I think we covered quite a lot of ground, Manjeet, and thanks for sharing your journey. How you got around getting to where you are, and I loved the wrestling angle to it. So lovely. So moving on to the next part of the conversation, I have a fun Q&A round. Not fun, well, it's some additional questions I have that we may have not covered.
mhm.
And are you ready for that?
Yeah, yeah. Let's bring it on.
Yeah. I don't ask any questions that get people in trouble, but just
No
some
worries. Yeah.
additional.
So if I don't know anything, I'll say I don't know. That's the
Okay. All right. The first question I have is, we all we are all we all like to be fit. We're endurance sports athletes, or we're fitness aficionados. But we have our weaknesses in terms of food. Everybody loves food.
Mhm.
So my first question: what's your favorite junk food? Every now and then
My
that you like
junk
to
food
indulge,
is
or what calls your name?
yeah. So I think I see, being from Haryana, we love the lot of milk products, and then that's one part of
Mm,
that is sweets.
mm,
So I would say sweets, and more recent, I would say my consumption model is a good coffee. Whenever I have to treat myself, let's say I worked really hard, morning calls, 6 a.m., and then now, hey, it's 3 p.m. What gets me is like a good coffee and a little bit of sweets. But I have a little bit of now is like, hey, again, if I want to go until 120, so now that's sweet thing. It's still sweet, but I replace it with, let's say, a kind of a protein bar sweet. So
okay.
that's one. And then if I have to unwind from a long week, then I do enjoy some kind of social wine gathering with friends. And then so I think those are the
Sure.
coffee with sweets and wine is my go-to. go-to.
Yeah.
I call it unwinding, right? We build up
Yeah. Yeah.
stress and all those form, and then what works for me is. They bring smile at my face whenever I consume them, and I cherish. I consume them slowly.
Yeah.
I take 20 minutes to drink my coffee, so that's how I kind of the sip by sip enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I would take the sweet as a
Yeah.
category of under the category of junk coffee, wine. I wouldn't necessarily put it as a junk food, but in sweets, anything in particular that you resist, you feel you shouldn't be eating it, but every time it comes in front of you, it's like, I gotta eat this, man. What is that? What sweet would that
So
be?
I think, see, if it's in front of me, I will eat any sweets. Honestly, that's kind of
Mm. No favorites?
But uh, I think all these milk thing like
Mm.
laddus and everything. That's
Okay.
but here is my how I keep in balance is I don't buy them. So we have a kind
Mm.
of little bit of unwritten rule in house when we go to
Mm.
grocery, we don't get those things because if they're there,
Yeah.
we will
Yeah.
eat it. And that works beautifully. My wife also is, bought into that philosophy now,
Right. Right.
because the biggest challenge is or problem is when you have a lot of foods in my
Yeah.
arm's length or those, I'll eat it.
Yes.
So
Yes. Absolutely.
so I
Correct.
don't want to, spend my time in resisting. To me, that's kind of, I'll want
Yeah.
to use that motivation or resistance somewhere else, not in like, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. So, if there's one athlete, or in your case, maybe a fitness guru, you could work out with, who would that be?
Fitness guru.
Or athlete? Uh,
Right, right.
you pick. You pick.
So I'd love to work out with Vidut Jambua because I think his training
Hmm.
style matches with a little bit of my training style. He yeah, so he's also, I think, very calisthenic type of workouts,
Hmm.
right? So, um, and yeah, so if he's making, I think he has this movie series like uh, Force One, Force, not Force One, Commando One, Commando Two, and those. If he's doing next one, I'd love to be a side hero in that.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. You kind of alluded to another question I had, but we'll come to that. All right.
Okay.
So, in terms of how you consume knowledge, is it book or movies? And if give me one of your, which is your favorite in either one of them, whichever is your means to acquiring knowledge.
Right. So a little bit of movies, but there has to be underdog stories. Any underdog story, if it has the little bit of sports angle or those, they resonates me very well.
Hmm.
But I would say my biggest source is mix of, I would say, Twitter and YouTube.
Okay.
That's where and whenever I'm unwinding my day, I have my coffee, I have my the sweet protein bar, and I'm then when I go into my Twitter feed, but it's a very highly curated Twitter feed. Happy to share
Mm-hmm.
sometime later. Is the That's another thing I've optimized. I want to consume what I want to consume, not what these algorithms and models are throwing at me. So
Hmm.
so I create different way of consuming Twitter, and same as kind of YouTube. I don't want to get sucked into for an hour. So
Yeah.
I like 30 minutes. And the way I do it is the thing, ideas and those, the resonates with me. I save them. I use Evernote or those.
Right.
And then I come back to them and it says like, hey, is it still good for me? If yes, how can I put into my practice learning? Or so that's a little bit of framework, and it's working out pretty well for me.
Nice. Nice.
Not a big kind of book reader. Again, the I skim a book. To pick a book, I'll skim a lot. There's anytime I lose the interest in like, okay, let's skim, go to next chapter, and so hard time finishing it. If it's a big book, a hard time for me to finish.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Glad you said you do 30 minutes content consumption because we're going to have at least 1 hour plus in our podcast. But you said it in the last, so hopefully people will still be around to do that.
they can listen in one
In
one
parts.
point
Yeah.
five x
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing with podcasts is, you can break it up. You don't listen to the whole podcast in one go. If you're going
Oh
for
yeah,
a
and
walk or a
during
run,
walking
break
and
it up.
others, so you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
multitask. Like when I do my
Yeah.
dishes, I always have
Mhm.
podcast.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the other thing. Hey, this is very good thing for your wrist health, by the way. If anybody was like, hey, I have the wrist pain, get the water a little warm, and then enjoy. Put a night podcast, and your wife will thank you for doing the
Nice.
dishes.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Last question I have is, if we made a movie of your
Right.
life so far, A, what genre would you put it in? And B,
Hmm.
who would you hire to play your role? And maybe you answered that question, but I'm asking that anyway.
Right. Right. So I think either. So I mentioned Vidot Jamwal. I think other
Yeah.
little bit of series or who I would hire is probably Akshay Kumar from Khiladi series.
Hmm.
So I think it's again the hey, this it brings that athleticism, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the nice story, but I would say this commando series. My dad was a commando, so I would love to
Yeah.
do anything around that. The army plus the combat plus going through the hardship, underdog, and very difficult situation, and how you come out from all those bumpy rides, and then so that fascinates me.
Yeah. So, Akshay Kumar, look for a script it's in your inbox. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good choices. Hey, learned a few more things about you in the process in the Q&A, Manjeet. Again, It was a fun conversation, learned a lot. We're coming to a wind up here. I'd like to give you the last word. Any final message you want to give to our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I think if you ask me, it's like, hey, what are the 3 words? Then I would say uh, fundamentals or basic. Know them. Whatever. Say, oh hey, I want to do triathlon, or I want to do Spartan, or I want to do this. See what are the basics. Don't just go to the shortcuts on those. Um, Figure out how do you repeat them. So that's the second word. Repetition, because a lot of this is slowly you build up that mind body connections, and there's nothing kind of surprise in the way. And the third word I would have is sustainability. So fundamentals, repeat them. Is it sustainable? Don't do anything for the sake of check. You can do it. I mean, let's say if you ask me bucket list, probably I'll end up doing one triathlon, but I'm not super honestly excited about it. It may change, but just there are a few things is like, okay, let me do it for an experience. But again, is like, hey, is this something that it fits into my lifestyle? Is it like the based on your kids and family and work? And then people who travel, I would say a little bit of my sales pitch. Follow me on social media. I put out a lot of how I keep my A game while traveling, working, and kind of those. So maybe that might resonate with you.
And I'll share your. Are you on Instagram or Facebook? Where do you want? Where can people reach you?
Instagram, Facebook. So Coach Manjeet. That's kind of easy to find, and so that's usually I post every day some form of
Okay.
Again, is like very. I don't spend more than 5 minutes. I'm working out in the morning. Take a picture. Whatever thought in that I have mood in that given time.
Right.
I try to see, and usually some people is like, hey, we haven't even wake up from the from the bed, and you already done and dusted, and I'm like, that's what it is, to that's morning time is me time. I want to get it done. Again and again, I think that's where and it's different for people who have the more energy in the evening. But the trade-off is in evening there are always things, priorities and others and whatnot. But I think the morning is where if you want to be consistent, highly consistent, morning is the slot where you want to make bet, not in the evening.
Right. Cool. Hey Manjeet, again, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the podcast today. I'll let you go enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Stay in touch. Thanks again.
Santosh, this was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.